Hello everybody, how are you doing? It's your favorite YouTuber, Rob, from the channel Rule of Two Review. Welcome back. Today is actually a pretty exciting day because on this video, we are going to revisit everyone's favorite topic about the Metroid Prime Trilogy HD remaster port supposed thing that we've all been waiting for literal years to hopefully see come to the Nintendo Switch. And I know it's frustrating because it feels like every single year this idea comes back up in the news cycle and the rumor cycle, and people are leaking things and rumoring things, and I've talked about it many times, the internet has talked about it many times. Every year, the conversation about the old Metroid Prime games coming to the Switch always resurfaces, and we are yet again seeing that. This one does feel pretty significant to me, for sure, and I think it's an interesting story. It has everyone abuzz. It feels like for the first time in many years, everyone is kind of jumping on board on really thinking this one may actually turn out to be true. And so I want to discuss, because it could be so exciting, what might be happening with Metroid Prime this year. Of course, before we dive any deeper into the Metroid Prime topic today, I like to remind you that I'm always trying to grow the channel here on Rule of Two Review. I am less than 2,000 subscribers away from 20,000, and I am still hoping to hit that sometime in the next year or so. I upload every single week, and I talk about all things Nintendo, all things Metroid, and all things gaming. So as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing and what you hear, then I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. So, the Metroid Prime Trilogy. Boy, does everyone want to see these amazing games make it over to the Nintendo Switch sometime before the Nintendo Switch's life actually ends. And as most of you guys know, the first Metroid Prime is my all-time favorite video game ever created, like, ever. And the two sequels, Primes 2 and 3, are also absolutely fantastic. So, you know, I own these games, multiple copies already on their original platforms, so it's not like I need these games to come to Switch to be able to play and enjoy them. However, this is a situation with classic games that I actually do think there is a ton of value to bringing these games over to the Switch. A, to see them hopefully look a little bit better and be ported into HD officially, not so much by like Dolphin emulators or by fans, but officially by Nintendo, ported into HD, and then of course, more importantly than that, to maybe prepare a lot of newcomers to the Metroid Prime series, because Metroid Prime 4 was announced 5 years ago, and we're still waiting and hoping to hear more about it. Now, like I said, I know that we're all sick of hearing about Metroid Prime HD rumors, you know, popping up literally every single year since the Switch was released in 2017. But it is what it is, man. People want this game, or want this collection, I should say. There's been a lot of discussion, both publicly and behind the scenes, about the fact that Nintendo, like, already has been planning on doing it for a while, and then maybe their release plans changed when they had to restart development on Metroid Prime 4. Potentially, that's just a theory, but it's definitely one that makes sense. And so it's just the nature of the beast, man. It makes too much sense. They're going to release these games at some point. I almost for sure believe it. I've personally heard enough to believe that it's going to happen. And we're sitting here waiting for it. So every time these rumors pop up, it's like, yeah, it makes sense. And people get excited because people want it. I think it's harmless for people to just desire it and keep the idea in the conversation. Now, the reason we're talking about it again right now for the year of 2022 is because Jeff Grubb, who many of you know, who is definitely always talking about things that he thinks are happening in the industry and with Nintendo, he was recently on a Giant Bomb podcast this past week, and he discussed what he's heard about what we might actually see.
I could say that I've been told pretty definitively that Metroid Prime Remastered is going to be one of their big holiday games. Like, in the past, this is something that I heard was in the works. They have things happening with that game. Now it's like I've been told that their plans are to release that game this holiday, I think almost certainly to line up with the 20th anniversary in November. So that's happening, and they need to tell us when that release date is. I think this begs the question, though, what about Metroid Prime 2 and 3? Well, the other scoop here is that those games are also coming. They're also pretty much done, it sounds like. But Nintendo, being Nintendo, is going to hold on to them and will likely drop them later along the road. however Nintendo decides in what order to release their games, they are going to do that, but they're going to do it separately, it sounds like. And Metroid Prime 1, my understanding is that's getting like the big remaster treatment, and then Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 are sort of getting, they'll probably get like the updated controls and things like that, but they're not getting quite the same overhaul that Metroid Prime 1 is getting.
So those clips are definitely pretty revealing and telling in a lot of ways for me, and I think for most of you, which is why this story started going around and getting everyone really excited. Now, I have a couple of thoughts on all of this. What we're ultimately looking at is Nintendo going to release just a $60 collection of all 3 games, you know, remastered in HD, maybe a couple of touch-ups to some of the other visuals like the lighting or textures or whatnot, but, you know, they would basically just do what they did in 2009 on the Wii, take all 3 games, make them HD, put them on the Switch. That's one idea, but this conversation about Prime 1 being made separately from Primes 2 and 3 has also been around for a while. Emily Rogers, I believe, was the first person to talk about this. I want to say last year, maybe it was as far back as 2020. I can't remember which year, but either in 2020 or in 2021, she put this idea out there that she heard that maybe that's what they're going to do. And Jeff Grubb kind of doubles down on him feeling the same in these clips here as well. That they're going to release Prime 1 as its own game, and that they're going to put a lot more effort into remaking and rebuilding that game, and then they would release Primes 2 and 3 separately with maybe less overall effort put into it. Now, this has a lot of people thinking a lot of different things and preferring different things on how Nintendo might go about this, right? Because a lot of folks say, why would you release them separately? Just put them all together. And Nintendo, if you're going to charge me $60 for each game individually, that's not okay. It's too much money unless you make each game a significant, massive remade improvement. If you do it to just one of the 3 games, I'm not going to pay $60 for each individual game. I'll only do it for Metroid Prime 1 because you're going to remake that one. I won't pay $60 for 2 and 3 if you're only going to remaster them, right? These are the things that people are saying, and I definitely understand it. I think my opinion might be a little bit unique from a lot of people, and I've shared it in the past, and I'll reiterate it to you here now. I ultimately am completely okay with them not releasing 3 games as an HD package and instead releasing Metroid Prime 1 only as a completely remade game. I actually prefer that to the Trilogy package because by just taking the original 3 games and making them HD, sure, it's a good value and it's, 3 of the best games ever made. And for $60, you're getting those 3 games in HD, and so the value works out, right? It's very similar to the Mario All-Stars collection, or the Mario 3D All-Stars collection, I should say. And I thought that was a great value. I own it, and I love it. But if you take the original Metroid Prime, and I'm biased here because, like I said, that's my favorite game ever made, and you take that one game, my personal favorite game, and you rebuild it the same way Sony did with Shadow of the Colossus, or Capcom did with Resident Evils 2 and 3, stuff like that. You remake that game and you do the graphics anew in a whole different way and maybe even change some content, hopefully for the better. That to me is a $60 package. That's remaking Metroid Prime the same way Metroid 2 was remade as Metroid Samus Returns, right? You put in a whole just slew of effort and you basically almost make it like a brand new game. That's worth $60 to me, and I would rather take that new Metroid Prime experience as opposed to the same 3 experiences I already know, but just made in HD, right? So that's my personal taste. You may feel differently, and that's okay, but for me, I see more value in that. Oddly enough, I actually think we can liken this potential idea to what Capcom did with the Resident Evil games in the GameCube era. For those of you who don't remember or who are too young to have even lived through it, which still blows my mind to think people could be that young, if you were too young or just unaware of what they did, the original Resident Evil got a full, ground-up, incredible and beautiful remake that not only featured just the best graphics we had ever seen at the time, but also new content for the GameCube. And then they went and just re-released Resident Evils 2 and 3 and maybe Code Veronica. I can't remember if they did Code Veronica, but they at least did Resident Evils 2 and 3, and those were basically just straight ports for, I believe, less money. So only the original game got a complete ground-up remake, and then they just ported Resident Evils 2 and 3, all on the GameCube. And it sounds like what we might see happen here on the Switch is the exact same template for the Metroid Prime Trilogy, where the first one gets the complete ground-up remake that is just amazing and hopefully going to blow us away, and then they just essentially port Metroid Primes 2 and 3. Now, provided they price all three of these releases properly, I personally would have no problem with that. It would satisfy me as a Metroid Prime fan big time. And so we then come down to, is this even real? Do we believe this? Do I believe this? And I'm just going to tell you that yes, I believe this. I actually think that there is a ton of truth to this, and I've actually believed it for a few years now. I don't really see any reason to think that this isn't going to happen. And as I said on a video recently, I think 2022 is another year where we will see more Metroid and hear from Metroid again. And I do think that that could include a tease of Metroid Prime 4, but I also very much think it means that this Prime 1 remake or Prime Trilogy port or whatever is also likely going to happen. I said this a week ago. Now we've got Jeff Grubb coming out and saying more things that he's heard and is talking about, and he thinks it's going to happen this year, maybe to coincide with the 20th anniversary of Metroid Prime 1. All I'll say to you guys is it all adds up to me. It adds up to the things that I've heard, it adds up to public speculation, and it adds up to just what I believe as a fan. I just think that this is going to happen, and so this could be a great time to see a second resurgence in a row of the Metroid franchise. We had Dread last year, which just blew our balls off, and it was amazing and great in every conceivable way. And I think we're going to get more Metroid this year in the form of these Prime Trilogy, Prime 1 remake things. And I also think there's a chance that we might be playing Metroid Prime 4 next year. I've been saying it for a while. I'm not dead set on that happening, but I think that there's a chance we play Metroid Prime 4 next year. And so it's just potentially really exciting. We're getting 2, maybe 3 years in a row of Metroid goodness. What a time to be alive. So this is the story. These are Jeff Grubb's quotes. And now you've heard my thoughts and opinions and predictions on what all of this means. I really hope we see all of this stuff happen, man, because I can never get too much Metroid. You guys know me. I am a Metroid guy. So what do you think about what's happening? What do you think about my opinions? And what are your own opinions? Talk about them below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.